A 6-year-old girl was huddled on the sidewalk, her arms covering her head, as a woman screamed and viciously hit her. People walked by, some even filming, but no one did anything, until a black luxury car screeched to a halt. From the back seat, a man emerged, impeccable suit, cold expression. He approached the scene, stared at the aggressor, and did something no one expected. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The silent engine of the Bentley Continental glided through the wet asphalt of Wall Street. Inside, the millionaire adjusted his Italian silk tie while reviewing figures on his tablet. The meeting to acquire yet another failing company had ended. Like all the others, with him victorious and dozens of people about to lose their jobs. Competitors called him the Shark. Not for his ferocity, but for the calculating coldness in his eyes that never betrayed emotion. The mansion awaiting him on the top of the hill resembled a marble mausoleum more than a home. Impeccable furniture that no one used. Rooms that echoed with solitary footsteps. Enormous windows that showed the world outside, but never let anything in. Exactly 6 years ago, he had sealed not only the doors of one of the house's rooms, but also his own heart. "Any changes to today's schedule, sir?" asked the driver, breaking the silence. "No, straight home," replied the millionaire, without taking his eyes off the screen. That's when the car had to slow down. A small crowd was forming on the sidewalk. Annoyed by the delay, the man looked out the tinted window, ready to order the driver to find another route. It was then that his eyes caught the scene. In another universe, separated from him only by a pane of bulletproof glass, a tiny girl was huddled against the wall of a grimy building. Her disheveled brown hair partially covered her face as her thin arms tried to protect her head from the blows coming from a disheveled-looking woman. Beside them, a crushed can and a piece of cardboard with words blurred by the rain. "You're useless. You can't even memorize 3 sentences," shouted the woman, pulling the girl's hair. The crowd watched. Some filmed with their cell phones. Others simply walked by, looking the other way. No one intervened. The girl didn't cry. Her large, opaque amber eyes had the look of someone who had grown accustomed to pain. She wore an oversized, torn coat that swallowed her skeletal body. Her bare feet were bruised. The millionaire felt something strange in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Maybe it was the way the afternoon light hit the child's face, or maybe it was those amber eyes, so familiar. "Stop the car," he ordered, almost in a whisper. "Sir?" "Stop the car now!" For the first time in 6 years, the man who calculated every move felt the irrational impulse to act without thinking about the consequences. Something about that child called to him, something beyond reason. Meanwhile, the girl no longer felt the blows. Her small body had learned to shut down during punishments. In her mind, she was far away, in a place where she sang a wordless song that she didn't know where she had learned. It was her only comfort on cold nights under overpasses, on days of hunger, in hours of fear. A melody that seemed to come from a distant dream, the only one she still had. What the child didn't know was that this wordless song was the same one that a woman used to sing in a marble house on the top of the hill. The same one that a man in an impeccable suit heard in his memories while wiping away hidden tears. The same one that connected 2 worlds that should never have met, but that fate had just placed face to face. The millionaire didn't wait for the driver to go around and open his door. With a determined movement, he got out of the vehicle, letting the tablet fall onto the leather seat. The light rain soaked his $10,000 suit as he crossed the street with firm steps, ignoring the surprised glances of passers-by. The woman who was hitting the child only noticed his presence when the shadow of the tall man covered her. For a moment, the aggressor froze, still holding the girl's arm with enough force to leave marks. "Problem?" she asked, flashing a nervous smile and slightly loosening her grip. "She's my niece, just having one of those fits." The millionaire didn't answer, his eyes, usually cold, now burned with a disturbing intensity. For an instant it seemed that he himself didn't know what he would do next. His breathing was erratic, and his hands, always steady when signing multi-million-dollar contracts, trembled slightly. "How much?" he asked finally, his voice controlled. "How much for what?" The woman looked confused, alternating glances between the elegant man and the audience, now paying full attention to the scene. "How much for the girl?" A murmur of astonishment ran through the small crowd. Someone turned up the volume on the cell phone that was filming. The girl, still huddled, watched with her large amber eyes without showing any reaction, as if she were watching a scene that didn't involve her, as if it were just another one of those days when adults decided her fate. "She's not for sale," the woman replied nervously. "I told you, she's my niece." The millionaire adjusted the watch on his wrist with deliberate calm, a gesture that, in his business meetings, always preceded a final offer. His eyes scanned the marks on the child's arms, the bruise that was beginning to form on her cheek, the dirt encrusted in her small nails. "My driver is calling the police right now," he said, pointing to the car where the employee was talking. "On the phone. The security camera of the store behind you recorded the entire assault. I can do two things now: wait for the police to arrive and testify against you, or..." He left the sentence hanging in the air, the silence more threatening than any word. "Or what?" asked the woman, now visibly nervous. "Or we can settle this in a way that you get out of here right now, with some money in your pocket, and never come near this child again." The audience around watched in silence. The rain was falling harder now, soaking everyone, but no one moved. The woman looked at the girl, then at the millionaire, then at the luxury car, calculating her options. $5,000, she said finally, releasing the child's arm. $5,000, and I disappear. Without hesitation, the millionaire took a wallet from the inside pocket of his suit, counted out some bills, and held them out to the woman, who snatched them quickly. "If you ever try to find her again," he said softly, approaching the woman, "I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in a cell." The woman took a step back, intimidated by the man's expression. With a last look at the girl, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. Several people applauded. Others began posting the videos online. A lady approached. "You did the right thing! I've been seeing this woman mistreat the girl for weeks. Thank God someone finally did something." But the millionaire wasn't listening. Kneeling on the wet sidewalk, his gaze met the child's for the first time, and what he saw in those amber eyes struck him like lightning. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't relief. It was the same emptiness he himself carried. The emptiness of someone who had stopped expecting anything good from life. "You're safe now," he said, extending his hand without touching her. The girl didn't respond. She didn't smile. She didn't move. She just watched, as if studying an unknown phenomenon. For the first time in 6 years, the millionaire performed an act without calculating risks or benefits. He took off his wetsuit jacket and placed it over the child's fragile shoulders. Then, with a gentleness he didn't even know he still possessed, he took her in his arms and carried her towards the car. "Where are we going?" asked the driver, surprised by the unusual scene. The millionaire looked at the child in his arms, light as a feather, and felt something unrecognizable flooding his chest. "Home," he replied, "and call my lawyers, all of them." The news spread like wildfire through the mansion staff. The boss had brought a child home. Not just any child, but a street kid, dirty and ragged. The older staff exchanged meaningful glances. It was the first time the millionaire had allowed any child into that space since the accident. "Don't be ridiculous," the millionaire said. On the phone, pacing back and forth in his mahogany office. "I'm not asking for your opinion on the matter. I'm ordering you to solve it. Use my contacts at the police, the courthouse, wherever necessary. I want temporary custody immediately." The lawyer on the other end of the line tried, unsuccessfully, to explain the legal complications. Meanwhile, the housekeeper had taken the girl to bathe and put on clean clothes, items quickly purchased online and delivered in less than an hour. "Sir," said the housekeeper, knocking gently on the office door, "the child is clean and fed, but she refuses to speak. She hasn't said a single word." The millionaire hung up the phone with an irritated gesture and sighed. "Leave her alone. She'll talk when she's ready." The housekeeper hesitated at the door. "There's something else, sir. We found marks. Many marks on her back and arms, old and recent. I think we should call a doctor." For a moment, the man's always controlled face betrayed a raw emotion, something between fury and pain. Quickly he recomposed himself. "Arrange that immediately, and prepare the blue room. She'll stay there." "The blue room? But wasn't that—" "I know what room it was. Just do what I'm telling you." When the housekeeper left, the millionaire closed his eyes and rested his forehead against the cold wood of the window. What the hell was he doing? He had built an empire based on cold rationality, on the absence of emotions and attachments. His life was a succession of calculated decisions with no room for impulses. And now, he had brought into his own home a complete stranger, a child. With a dark past and an uncertain future, he needed to come to his senses. He would help the girl, of course, pay for treatments, find a good adoptive family, even establish a trust fund for her education. But distance was essential. Emotional involvement was unthinkable. He picked up the phone again. "Find a top-tier institution for children," he ordered the assistant. "Something discreet, with good results in traumatic cases. The girl will only be here for a few days until we sort out the paperwork." Later, he walked hesitantly towards the blue room. He stopped at the door, his hand on the knob, paralyzed by memories that flooded his mind. That room had been sealed for 6 years, and now there he was, about to open it to a stranger. When he finally entered, he found the girl sitting on the edge of the bed, too big for her fragile little body. She wore new pajamas with small teddy bears printed on them, which only accentuated her worrying thinness. Her now clean brown hair framed a face that, without the dirt, revealed high, delicate cheekbones. There was no fear in her eyes, only a cautious observation. "The doctor said you're malnourished, but there's nothing broken," the millionaire said, keeping his distance. "You'll stay here for a few days until we find a suitable place for you." The girl didn't answer. Her eyes wandered around the room, focusing on small details, the blue horses on the wallpaper, the collection of children's books on the shelf, the teddy bear on top of the dresser. Her bare feet swung without touching the floor. Do you want to tell me your name?" The millionaire tried. Silence. "Are you hungry? Thirsty? Do you need anything?" More silence. The man sighed, feeling awkward and out of place in his own home. He began to walk towards the door. "Are you going to hit me too?" The question, asked in a hoarse and low voice, as if her vocal cords were unaccustomed to producing sounds other than crying, froze the millionaire in place. He turned slowly. "No," he replied firmly. "No one will ever hit you again. I promise." The girl nodded slightly as if processing the information, but without showing whether she believed it or not. The millionaire felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to get out of there. He needed to get out of there. That room, that child, those amber eyes that seemed to pierce his soul. It was too much. "Sleep well," he said dryly, closing the door. Outside, he leaned against the wall and took several deep breaths. Why did that unknown girl affect him so much? Why couldn't he simply treat her as a charity case? a temporary project. "Sir, the temporary custody documents are already being processed," the assistant reported, approaching down the hall. "And we have 3 top-notch institutions to evaluate tomorrow. All have excellent results with cases of child trauma." "Right," replied the millionaire, recomposing himself. "Schedule them for next week." "Next week? I thought you wanted urgency in this case." The millionaire hesitated, surprised at himself. "The girl needs a few days to recover physically before another change," he justified, more to himself than to the assistant. "Just schedule them for next week." As he walked to his own room, the millionaire tried to convince himself that he was just being rational, thoughtful, that there was nothing emotional about his decision to postpone the placement. What he didn't know was that in the blue room, the girl had quietly gotten out of bed and reached for the old teddy bear on the dresser. Holding it close, she lay down again and for the first time in years felt she could close her eyes without fear. The next morning, the mansion felt different. It had the same cold marble, the same imposing statues, the same valuable paintings. But a new sound echoed through the silent halls. Light, hesitant little footsteps, exploring an unknown territory. The millionaire woke up earlier than usual. He had slept poorly, haunted by dreams he hadn't had in years. He went down for his breakfast promptly at 6:30, as he did every day, expecting to find only the efficient housekeeper with his coffee prepared exactly as he liked it. Instead, he found the table impeccably set, and a small figure sitting in one of the chairs, staring at a bowl of cereal as if it were an alien object. "Good morning," he said, trying to soften the naturally authoritative tone of his voice. The girl looked up but didn't respond. She wore one of the outfits that had been delivered the day before, a simple light blue dress and white flats. Her hair, now clean and combed, fell in brown waves to her shoulders. Without the dirt and the fear, it was possible to see that she was an extraordinarily beautiful child, with delicate features reminiscent of a porcelain doll. "May I?" asked the millionaire, indicating the chair at the table. A small nod. Progress. Breakfast was eaten in silence. The girl ate slowly, as if savoring each spoonful, although she kept a protective arm around the bowl, a habit of someone who was used to having food stolen or denied. The millionaire watched discreetly, over the financial newspaper he pretended to read. "I have some meetings today," he said finally, breaking the silence. "The housekeeper will stay with you. She can show you the library if you like books." The mention of books made the child's eyes light up for an instant. It was so subtle, so quick, that anyone less observant would have missed it. But the millionaire, trained to detect minimal reactions in high-stakes negotiations, caught it immediately. "You like books?" An almost imperceptible movement of agreement. "Can you read?" The girl lowered her eyes, embarrassed, and shook her head. "That's not a problem," said the millionaire, surprised by the softness in his own voice. "We have many books with illustrations, and maybe we can start teaching you, if you want." For the first time since she had arrived, something close to a smile touched the child's lips. It was as fleeting as the previous sparkle in her eyes, but it was real. The millionaire felt a strange, warm feeling in his chest. He cleared his throat and reopened the newspaper, hiding behind it. "Well, I need to get ready for work. I'll be back tonight." He stood up, adjusting his impeccable suit. He hesitated for a moment, then added, "Maybe we can read something together when I get back." He turned to leave, but stopped when he heard a soft little voice behind him. "Thank you." It was the second time he had heard her speak, and it was enough for him to be late for the first time in 2 decades of his career. During the day, while conducting meetings and signing contracts, the millionaire found himself constantly thinking about the mansion. In the most important meetings, his thoughts would drift to the small figure in the blue dress. Was she comfortable? Had she found something she liked to do? Was she scared? For the first time in years, work didn't occupy every inch of his mind. "Sir?" called his assistant for the third time. "The contract?" "Yes. Yes, of course." He signed, quickly, without the usual meticulous reading. "Any news from the lawyers about the custody?" "They're working on it. They need the child's full name to proceed." The millionaire frowned. "She hasn't told me her name yet. Tell them to get creative. Use Jane Doe or something for now." At 5 in the afternoon, 2 hours before his normal quitting time, the millionaire surprised everyone by announcing that he was going home. On the way, he asked the driver to stop at a bookstore. He came out with a stack of children's books and a learn-to-read starter kit. When he arrived at the mansion, he found the housekeeper distraught. "Sir, we haven't found the girl anywhere for at least an hour. We've looked in all the rooms, in the garden, even in the service areas." The panic he felt was disproportionate. After all, he barely knew this child. Why did his heart feel like it was about to explode? "Did you check the library?" "Yes, sir. It was the first place. And the locked room on the 3rd floor." The housekeeper paled. "No, sir. No one has the keys except you." Without saying anything more, the millionaire went up the stairs 2 at a time. In front of the carved oak door at the end of the 3rd floor hallway, he paused. His hands trembled as he searched for the key that he always carried with him, but hadn't used in 6 years. He unlocked the door with difficulty and opened it silently. The room was exactly as it had been left, a sanctuary frozen in time. A nursery, decorated with mobiles of stars and moons, walls painted with scenes from fairy tales, a single bed with white canopies. And there, asleep on the floor amidst open photo albums, was the girl. The millionaire approached slowly. The scattered photos showed a smiling woman with a little girl in her arms. In others, the same pregnant woman, radiant, next to a younger man, the millionaire himself, before the worry lines, before the hard look that now characterized him. The girl woke up with the sound of footsteps. She sat up, startled. "Sorry," she whispered, "the door wasn't locked." "It's okay," he replied, sitting on the floor next to her. "I'm not mad." They both looked at the scattered photographs. "Is that your family?" asked the girl timidly. The millionaire swallowed hard. It was. What happened to them? For a long moment, he didn't answer. The question was simple, but the answer was a territory to which he hadn't returned in years. "There was an accident," he said finally. "A car accident. 6 years ago." The girl studied him with those big, serious eyes. Then, to the millionaire's surprise, she extended her small hand and touched his in a gesture of comfort so unexpected that he almost recoiled. "I'm sorry," she said with a wisdom that no 6-year-old should have. The millionaire felt something break inside him, a tiny but deep crack in the wall he had built around his heart. "I brought some books," he said, changing the subject before his emotions betrayed him. "Would you like to learn to read?" Now, the smile that lit up the girl's face was like a ray of sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Later, sitting in the mansion's immense library, the millionaire and the child were bent over an illustrated book. The initial tension had given way to a strange camaraderie. The girl, once so silent, now repeated the letters with enthusiasm, pointing out words, asking questions. At one point she stopped abruptly and said, "My name is Anna." The millionaire looked up, surprised. "Anna," he repeated, feeling the name on his tongue. "It's a beautiful name." "I don't know my last name," she confessed. "Auntie never told me." "That doesn't matter now," he replied. "Anna is enough." When the housekeeper came to announce dinner, she found a scene she would never have thought possible. The boss, known for his coldness, sitting on the library floor like a child, laughing at a story he was reading to the girl. And for the first time in 6 years, the sound of genuine laughter echoed through the halls of the empty mansion. In the days that followed, a strange routine began to establish itself in the mansion. The millionaire still went to work, still commanded his empire with an iron fist, still intimidated competitors in business meetings, but now there was a rush in his steps at the end of the day. The driver was instructed to take faster routes. Meetings ended promptly. At home, Anna flourished, like a plant finally exposed to the sun after long confinement in the darkness. Each day brought a small achievement, a new word learned, a more open smile, a more complex question. The night terrors, however, persisted. Often the housekeeper found the girl huddled under the bed, trembling, murmuring inaudible pleas. Doctors say this is normal in cases of prolonged trauma, explained the child psychologist the millionaire had hired. The brain needs time to reprocess the experiences, to understand that it's safe now. How long? He asked impatiently, accustomed to problems that could be solved with money and power. There is no set deadline. Each child responds differently, but stability is key. Abrupt changes or renewed abandonment can completely reverse the progress. The millionaire reflected on these words during dinner that night. He watched Anna eating carefully, using the silverware with the concentration of someone who is still learning the rules. The institutions he had investigated were excellent, no doubt. They offered quality therapy, personalized education, safe environments, but none offered continuity. On Friday night, a scream cut through the silence of the early morning. The millionaire woke up startled and ran to the blue room without even putting on a robe over his silk pajamas. He found Anna sitting on the bed, wide-eyed, bathed in a cold sweat. "He was taking me away," she sobbed, when the millionaire sat on the edge of the bed. "A bad man was taking me away from here." "It was just a nightmare," he assured, awkwardly. "No one is going to take you away." "Promise?" The word hung between them. A promise. How long had it been since he had made or received a genuine promise? Promises were dangerous. Promises created expectations. Promises could be broken. "I promise," he replied, surprising himself. The next morning, he called his lawyer. "Cancel the visits to the institutions. I want to start the process for permanent adoption." There was an astonished silence on the other end of the line. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a very serious decision. You've known this child for less than 2 weeks. Perhaps we should consider—" "You heard what I said," interrupted the millionaire with the cold tone he used to end unwanted discussions. That afternoon, Anna and the millionaire walked together through the mansion's garden. It was the first time the child had ventured into the extensive lawns and rose gardens that surrounded the property. Her little eyes wandered in wonder at every detail: the colorful butterflies, the marble statues, the meticulously cared for flower beds. "You have a garden as big as a park," she commented, timidly touching a red rose. "I actually never come here," confessed the millionaire. "Not since—" He didn't complete the sentence, but it wasn't necessary. Anna had already understood, with that keen perception of children who had known suffering, that there were places in that house that held more pain than others. "Did your wife like flowers?" she asked with surprising delicacy. The millionaire nodded, his throat suddenly tight. "Very much. She spent hours here. She said that roses were like people, complex, beautiful, and sometimes thorny." Anna smiled at the comparison. Then, to the man's surprise, she took his hand. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact without hesitation. Her little fingers disappeared into the millionaire's large, powerful hand. "Can I tell you a secret?" asked the girl in a low voice. "Of course. Sometimes, when I'm sleeping, I hear a woman singing. I don't know if it's a dream or a memory, but the music makes me feel safe." The millionaire felt his heart race. "Can you sing it for me?" Anna looked around, as if to make sure no one else would hear. Then in a sweet and hesitant voice, she began to sing a simple melody, without definite words. It was just a sequence of notes, a soft lullaby. The millionaire's face lost all color. His knees buckled, and he needed to lean on a stone bench. That song. It was the same one his wife had composed for their daughter, a unique melody that had never been recorded or shared, a lullaby that existed only within the walls of that house. Where did you learn that?" he asked in a trembling voice. Anna shrugged. "I always knew it. It's here," she said, touching her own chest, "even when I forget other things." Throughout that night, after leaving Anna sleeping in the blue room, the millionaire stayed awake, his mind in turmoil. The coincidence was impossible. That song was like a musical fingerprint, unique and unmistakable. How could that child know it? The most obvious answer was also the most painful. It couldn't be a coincidence. There was some connection between Anna and the family he had lost. But what? And how to discover it without igniting hopes that could prove false and devastating? The next morning, the millionaire didn't go to work. For the first time in years, he cancelled all meetings without explanation. There was a more important investigation to do, one that couldn't be delegated to employees or assistants. In the meticulously organized files in his office, he found the blue folder he hadn't opened since the funeral. Police reports, medical records, photographs of the accident, newspaper clippings. His hands trembled as he leafed through the documents detailing the worst day of his life. The accident had occurred on a mountain road. A truck had lost control on a sharp curve, colliding head-on with the car where his wife and daughter were. The vehicle had fallen into a ravine and caught fire. The bodies were consumed by the flames, making recognition almost impossible. The millionaire had identified his wife only by the wedding ring that had survived the fire. As for his daughter, his eyes lingered on a sentence in the report that he had never noticed before. Body of the minor not located in the vehicle, presumed ejected during the fall and swept away by the river current. Not located, presumed, words that opened up a possibility unimaginable until then. With his heart pounding, he picked up the phone. "I need you to find the medical and police team that was at my family's accident," he ordered the head of security. "All of them, especially whoever wrote this report, immediately." While he waited, he analyzed Anna's recent medical records, the pediatrician's estimated age, 6 years, coinciding exactly with the time since the accident. Blood type, O negative, rare, the same as his deceased daughter's. A coincidence, perhaps? But the song eliminated any doubt. The phone rang. "Sir, I managed to locate the lieutenant who coordinated the search after the accident. He's retired now, but he agreed to come here. He'll be arriving in an hour." Time had never passed so slowly. On an impulse, the millionaire went up to the locked room on the 3rd floor, the nursery that had never been dismantled. Among the toys and mementos, he located a small music box. As he opened it, the same melody that Anna had sung in the garden filled the room. "What are you doing?" The child's voice at the door startled him. Anna was there, watching him curiously. "This music." The millionaire held up the music box. "It's the same one you sang yesterday." The girl approached, touching the object with reverence. "It's the music that's in my head," she confirmed, marveling. "Where did it come from?" Before he could answer, the housekeeper appeared in the hallway. "Sir, Lieutenant Rodriguez has arrived." The middle-aged man sitting in the living room looked uncomfortable amidst the luxury of the mansion. He stood up as he saw the millionaire enter. "Sir, it's an honor to finally meet you in person. I coordinated the search after the incident. I'm very sorry for your loss." "I appreciate you coming," replied the millionaire, dispensing with formalities. "I need you to tell me everything you remember about the accident, especially about my daughter." The lieutenant cleared his throat, nervous. Well, as stated in the report, the vehicle fell approximately 250 feet into the river. Due to the impact and the subsequent fire, the identification of the remains was extremely difficult. Your wife was located in the driver's seat, but my daughter's body was never found, completed the millionaire. Why wasn't that emphasized at the time? The lieutenant ran his hand through his graying hair. Sir, with all due respect, you were devastated. Your lawyers and advisors took the lead on everything. When we explained that the child's body had probably been swept away by the current, they decided to spare you the details and close the case. We searched for weeks, but the river in that area is treacherous, with many submerged caves. Eventually, the searches were called off. So there is a possibility that she survived. The millionaire's voice was almost a whisper. The lieutenant hesitated. Theoretically, yes. If she had been ejected before the vehicle caught fire, and if someone found her quickly, but it would be almost a miracle. A miracle. Or destiny. Lieutenant, I found a child. A 6-year-old girl with the same rare blood type as my daughter, and she knows a song that only my wife sang. The retired police officer's eyes widened. Sir, that's extraordinary. But we need concrete evidence. A DNA test would be the safest route. I've already arranged it, replied the millionaire. The lab promised maximum urgency in the results, but I'm almost certain. At that moment, as in a script perfectly planned by destiny, Anna entered the room, still holding the music box. She stopped when she saw the unfamiliar visitor. Hello, she said timidly. The lieutenant turned pale. He looked at the girl, then at the millionaire, then again at Anna. My God, he murmured. The eyes, they are exactly like your wife's. Anna approached the millionaire, seeking safety. He put his arm around her small shoulders, a protective gesture that now felt natural. Anna, this is Lieutenant Rodriguez. He's helping us figure out where you came from. The girl nodded solemnly. I don't remember much from before, just Auntie, and before her, the hospital. Hospital. The millionaire and the lieutenant exchanged alarmed glances. Yes, I lived in a hospital for a long time. The nurses said I had hit my head, and that's why I didn't remember things. Then Auntie picked me up there. She said she was my family, but she never treated me like family. The lieutenant scratched his chin thoughtfully. There's a hospital in the area near the accident. Maybe we should check if there are records of an unidentified child admitted at the time. The millionaire didn't need to order. In minutes, his security team was already on their way to the mentioned hospital with authorization to access all files. The answer came even before the DNA results. A medical report from 6 years ago detailed the admission of an unidentified female patient, approximately 8 to 10 months, found on the banks of the river by local fishermen. The child had suffered a head trauma and hypothermia, but had miraculously survived. Without identification and with no one to claim her, she remained in the hospital for more than a year until she was transferred to the foster care system. It was there that Auntie found her. Not a relative, they discovered, but a woman with a history of fraud who took advantage of vulnerable children for begging schemes. When the envelope with the DNA results finally arrived, the millionaire already knew what he would find. Still, the words printed on the official paper brought tears to his eyes for the first time in 6 years. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. Anna wasn't just any child that destiny had placed in his path. She was his own daughter, snatched from his arms by the accident, but returned by a chance so improbable that it seemed the work of a higher power. That night, sitting in the garden that had now bloomed again with both of their presents, the millionaire told Anna the truth. In simple words, he explained that she was the little girl in the photographs, that the smiling woman was her mother, that they had been separated, but now they were together again. "So you're my dad?" asked Anna, her big amber eyes trying to process the revelation. "Yes," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. "I am your dad." The girl remained silent for a long moment. Then, with the same seriousness that characterized her, she said, "I always knew that there was someone looking for me. Even when I was with Auntie, even when I was hungry or cold. In here," she touched her own chest again, "I knew I wasn't alone." The millionaire couldn't hold back the tears anymore. He opened his arms, and for the first time, his daughter, ran into them without hesitation. The sky above them was filled with stars, silent witnesses to a reunion that defied all odds. In the mansion that had been only an empty shell for so long, echoed now the sound of hearts that were beating in sync again. The happiness of the reunion lasted exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, a storm hit the millionaire's life, not in the sky, but in the headlines of all the newspapers and news channels. Tycoon kidnaps street child. Billionaire accuses minor of being his deceased daughter. Police investigate case of possible psychological disorder in businessman. The video of the day he found Anna being beaten on the sidewalk went viral, but with a completely distorted narrative. Commentators questioned his intentions. Psychologists diagnosed compensatory delusions due to unresolved trauma. And the worst, social services authorities had already issued an order to remove Anna from his custody. "How did this happen?" he demanded, pacing back and forth in his office while his lawyers tried to explain the situation. "The woman who was with the girl," explained the lead lawyer, "filed a formal complaint. She claims that you assaulted her and kidnapped her niece. And unfortunately, the story took a bad turn in the media. A rich and powerful man taking a poor child away from her family. That woman was beating her in public," thundered the millionaire. "We have witnesses, videos, and the DNA test proves that Anna is my daughter." "The problem is the time it took to do the test," pondered another lawyer. 6 years have passed. It seems too convenient to find your daughter right now. The press is implying that you are so desperate for an heir that you have convinced yourself and the child of this story. The millionaire felt his blood run cold. The idea of losing Anna again, now that he had finally found her, was unbearable. "I won't let them take her," he declared, with the same determination that had made him build an empire. "Use all legal resources available. Buy time. I just need a few days to organize everything." But not all the money in the world could stop the media whirlwind that had formed. Reporters surrounded the mansion. Protesters positioned themselves on both sides of the controversy, some demanding justice for the poor family, others defending the devastated father. The police visited the property 3 times in 2 days, checking on Anna's well-being. The girl, who was just beginning to feel safe, began to withdraw again. The nightmares, which had diminished, returned with full force. During the day, she remained silent, looking out the windows with worry, as if expecting someone to come and get her at any moment. "No one is going to separate us," promised the millionaire, holding her little hands between his. "Trust me." But Anna, with the sad wisdom of children who had seen promises broken many times, only nodded, without really believing it. On the morning of the 6th day after the media storm began, a social worker arrived at the mansion, accompanied by 2 police officers and a court order. "I'm sorry, sir," said the woman, with genuine compassion in her eyes. "I know you believe you are doing the right thing, but we need to act in the best interest of the child while this whole case is investigated. Anna will be temporarily placed under state custody." "Please," pleaded the millionaire, something he had never done in his entire life. "She's my daughter. I have proof. The DNA tests. They will be considered by the judge at next week's hearing," completed the assistant. "Until then, the girl will be in a neutral and safe environment." Anna clung to the millionaire's leg in panic. "I don't want to go. Please, Dad, don't let them take me." It was the first time she had called him Dad. The sound of that word, so longed for and now uttered in the most desperate moment, shattered what remained of the millionaire's self-control. "Give me a day," he asked the social worker. "Just one day to prepare everything, to explain it to her, to pack her belongings." The woman hesitated, looking at the terrified child. She consulted the police officers with a look. 24 hours, she agreed finally. "We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I'll need to leave one of the officers on the property to make sure, well, that everything goes as planned." When the group withdrew, leaving only an embarrassed young police officer at the entrance, the millionaire lifted Anna into his arms and took her to the office, locking the door. "Listen carefully," he said, with an intensity that made the girl stop crying immediately. "I'm not going to let them separate us, never again, but I'll need your help and courage. Can we do this together?" Anna nodded, wiping away tears with the back of her hands. "Good. Now I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say, even if it seems strange or scary. Promise?" "I promise," replied the girl with a surprising firmness for someone so small. The millionaire kissed her forehead and picked up the phone. It was time to do the only thing he had never imagined he would do: abandon everything he had built to save the only thing that really mattered. During that day, Anna watched her father make dozens of calls, sign documents, meet with people who arrived discreetly through the back of the property. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt the urgency in every word, in every gesture. At night, the millionaire came to her room with a small suitcase. "Put in only what's really important to you," he instructed. "We'll have to travel light." Anna thought for a moment, then put in the suitcase only the teddy bear from the dresser, the music box, and one of the books they had read together. "Is that all?" asked the millionaire, surprised. "I only need this," she replied simply. "And you?" Those words reverberated in the soul of the man who had once measured value only in numbers with high digits. He, who possessed mansions on 3 continents, cars that cost more than many houses, works of art valued at millions, understood now that his daughter, who had grown up with nothing, had just taught him the most valuable lesson about what really mattered. At midnight, when the mansion finally fell silent and the police officer assigned to watch them fell asleep in his chair in the hall, the millionaire took Anna in his arms and followed the secret tunnel that led from the cellar to the service entrance, where a simple car, nothing like the luxury vehicles of his usual fleet, waited with the engine running. "Where are we going?" asked Anna, as they drove silently down the back road, leaving behind the lights of the mansion. "To a place where we can be just father and daughter," he replied. "No reporters, no lawsuits, no one trying to separate us." What the millionaire didn't tell her was that in the last 24 hours, he had transferred most of his fortune to untraceable accounts, resigned from the presidency of his companies, and prepared documents with new identities for both of them. He was abandoning an empire to rebuild the only treasure that really belonged to him, his family. Dawn was breaking in the small coastal town when the car finally parked in front of a wooden house by the sea. It wasn't luxurious like the mansion, but it had a cozy charm, with its blue walls faded by the salt and the wild garden full of wildflowers. The sound of the waves crashed harmoniously against the rocks below. "Are we here?" asked Anna, rubbing her sleepy eyes after the long night drive. "Yes," replied the millionaire, now unrecognizable with his disheveled hair, unshaven beard, and simple clothes. "This is our new home, at least for now." The girl got out of the car, breathing deeply the sea air. Her eyes wandered curiously over the modest property, so different from the opulence she had begun to get used to. "It's small," she noted. "Very small," he agreed. "But it's ours, and most importantly, no one knows us here." The house belonged to a former employee who owed him favors. It had been prepared hastily in the last few hours, stocked with the basics, so they could settle in. It wasn't much, but for someone who had slept under overpasses like Anna, or for someone who had lived in a cold marble mausoleum like the Millionaire, it represented a new possibility, a fresh start. In the days that followed, while the world they had left behind erupted with the kidnapping and disappearance of both, father and daughter created their own bubble of normalcy. He learned to prepare breakfast without the help of a staff of employees. She learned to swim in the calm sea of the bay. Together they explored the town, introducing themselves as Peter and Sophia to the locals. Occasionally, when they managed to get an internet signal at the small cafe in the square, they checked the news. The story had gained scandalous proportions. Speculation about their whereabouts ranged from the absurd to the tragic. Some theories suggested that the billionaire had fled the country with the kidnapped child. Others hinted at a darker ending. The most ironic thing, however, was that the more the sensationalist press attacked the missing millionaire, the more details of the case emerged. Investigative journalists began to dig deeper into the story of Anna's supposed auntie. They discovered her history of fraud and abuse. They interviewed other children who had passed through her hands. Some reporters even managed to locate the hospital records that corroborated the millionaire's version. On a particularly sunny afternoon, while Anna built sandcastles on the beach in front of the house, the millionaire received a call on his encrypted phone, the only contact he maintained with his old world. "The winds are changing, sir," informed his trusted lawyer. The auntie's case went to trial, and she confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. The social worker who was assigned to you gave an emotional interview saying she always believed your version, and the DNA test has finally been accepted and publicly recognized. The pressure now is for them to find you and apologize, not to arrest you. "And the charges?" asked the millionaire, watching his daughter play carefree in the sun. "All dropped. The judge dismissed the case. You and Anna are legally father and daughter, without contestation." It was all he needed to hear. He hung up the phone and walked to the water's edge, sitting next to Anna on the warm sand. "Sophia," he called, using the false name they had adopted, "how would you feel if we could go home, to our real home?" The girl stopped shaping the sand and looked at him seriously. "They won't try to take me away again." "No," he guaranteed. "Never again. Now everyone knows the truth." Anna considered the proposal for a moment, looking at the horizon where the sea met the sky. "Can we take our shells?" she asked, pointing to the collection of colorful shells they had gathered on their morning walks. "All of them." "And are we going to keep having breakfast together and reading stories before bed and watching the sunset?" The millionaire smiled, realizing what really mattered to her, and to him too, now that he had learned to see the world through his reunited daughter's eyes. "Every day," he promised, "no matter where we live or how many meetings I have, those things will never be negotiable again." Anna considered the words with the seriousness she always demonstrated in important decisions, then nodded, satisfied. "Then we can go back. But can we visit the sea sometimes? I'll buy a beach house. We can come whenever we want." The child smiled, turning her attention back to the sandcastle. "You know, Dad," she said after a moment, "I think I always knew." "Knew what, sweetheart?" "That you would find me, even when I was with Auntie, even when I was scared and hungry. A part of me knew that someone was looking for me." The millionaire swallowed hard, touched by his daughter's instinctive wisdom. "And I always knew you were alive," he confessed. "Somewhere in my heart, I never truly accepted that I had lost you." On that day, sitting on the sand with the waves licking their feet and the sun warming their faces, both understood that some bonds are simply indestructible, that neither accidents, nor separations, nor time, nor distance can completely break the connection between a father and a daughter who are destined to find their way back to each other. 2 weeks later, When a private helicopter landed in the field near the town to take them back, it wasn't the same cold and calculating millionaire who was leaving, nor the same scared and silent girl who had arrived. They were two people transformed by the journey they had shared, stronger together than they would ever be apart. The return to the big city was as spectacular as the escape had been discreet. The press, which had previously hunted the millionaire with sensationalist accusations, now competed for the first exclusive interview with the father who defied the system to save his daughter. Public opinion, always volatile, had gone from condemnation to celebration of a story that touched everyone's heart. But not everything would be so simple. Although legally cleared, the millionaire knew he needed to face the consequences of his actions. His companies had suffered from his sudden absence. Shareholders demanded explanations. Employees feared for their jobs. "I can't just go back and pretend nothing happened," he explained to Anna while they were together organizing. Her room in the mansion, now redecorated with seashells and photographs from their adventure on the beach. "I need to take responsibility." "Are you going to have trouble because of me?" asked the girl, worried. "No, sweetheart. I'll have the chance to fix something that was broken for too long. Not just our reunion, but also the way I conduct my life." The next morning, the millionaire did something unprecedented in his career. He called a press conference, not in an aseptic corporate room, but in the garden of his mansion, the same garden that his wife loved so much and that now, with Anna's presence, had bloomed again. Dozens of cameras and reporters crowded the carefully prepared space. Anna watched everything nervously from a window on the second floor, accompanied by the housekeeper who faithfully had awaited her return. "Ready?" asked the millionaire, entering the room adjusting his tie, not the usual navy blue silk tie he wore like armor, but a colorful one that Anna had chosen in the small store in the coastal town before they left. "I'm scared," confessed the girl. "Of what? What if they want to take me again?" The millionaire knelt before her, adjusting the bow on her yellow dress, another souvenir of her temporary life away from the spotlight. "That will never happen again," he assured. "And you know why? Because this time we're not going to hide. We're going to tell our story. The truth is our greatest protection." Anna took a deep breath, then nodded bravely. "Can I go with you?" "Are you sure?" "There will be a lot of people, a lot of cameras." "I am. We promised, remember, to do everything together now." The millionaire felt his chest swell with pride. Where was that frightened child who trembled at the slightest noise? In her place, he now saw a determined little girl with an inner strength that could only be inherited from her mother. "Then let's go." Hand in hand, father and daughter descended the stairs. When they appeared in the garden, a sudden silence fell over the crowd of journalists. Flashes fired, but Anna wasn't intimidated. With her chin raised, she took her place next to her father on the small podium set up among the rose bushes. "Good morning, everyone," began the millionaire, his firm voice amplified by the microphones. "Thank you for attending this invitation. I'm not here to defend myself or criticize the media for the hasty judgment. I'm here to share a story, our story." For the next 30 minutes, he narrated with contained emotion the loss, the pain, the unexpected meeting, the discoveries, the forced separation, and finally, the reconnection. He explained how, in desperation, he had done what any father would do to protect his daughter. "I don't regret having run away," he declared, "but I regret many other things. I regret the 6 years lost. I regret the cold and distant man I became after the accident. I regret the business decisions that I put above people." He looked at Anna, who was watching him with admiration. This extraordinary child not only survived an accident that should have been fatal, but also years of abandonment and abuse And yet when we finally met again, she held within herself a light that I thought had gone out forever. She taught me that no wealth, no power, no professional achievement can replace what really matters: love, family, connection. Journalists who had started the press conference with sharp questions about fraud, flight, and abuse of power now found themselves silently moved. Some discreetly wiped away tears. "From today," continued the millionaire, "I am completely restructuring my companies. No employee will be laid off. On the contrary, we are creating a new division focused exclusively on social projects for vulnerable children. I will use my influence and resources to ensure that other Annas don't have to wait 6 years to find a safe home." He paused, and then, to the surprise of everyone, including Anna, he picked the girl up in his arms and stepped forward. "And most importantly, from today, I ask all of you to respect our space and privacy. My daughter deserves to grow up like any normal child, away from the spotlight and speculation. The man you knew, the heartless business shark, no longer exists. In his place is just a father, learning every day to be better for the most important person in his life." The questions came in a cascade after the speech. Anna, surprisingly, asked to answer some of them. In simple but powerful words, she explained how she felt when she discovered who she really was, how she recognized the music from her childhood, and how, even in the most difficult moments on the streets, something inside her kept her hopeful. "I always knew I had a place to return to," she said, with a wisdom that silenced even the most cynical reporters. "I just didn't know where it was." The image of them together, the powerful businessman transformed, and the resilient little survivor became instantly iconic. Broadcast live to millions of viewers, their story provoked not only tears, but also a national movement of awareness about missing and vulnerable children. At night, after the last journalist left and the mansion returned to silence, the millionaire took Anna to a special place in the garden, a small memorial he had built for his wife years ago. "This is your mother," he said, showing the framed photo of the woman with amber eyes identical to Anna's. The girl touched the portrait with reverence. "She was beautiful," she whispered. "Do you think she knows that we're together again?" The millionaire looked at the night sky dotted with stars. "I'm sure she does. In fact, sometimes I think she orchestrated all of this. That somehow she guided my car to that street at that exact moment so that we could meet." Anna smiled, liking the idea. She took out the small music box that she now carried with her everywhere and opened it. The sweet melody floated through the garden, cradling the moment of peace they shared. "Thank you for not giving up on me," said the girl, resting her head on her father's shoulder. "Even when you didn't even know it was me." The millionaire hugged his daughter tightly, feeling the miracle of having her back. He thought of all the moments he almost gave up, on life, on hope, on humanity, and how an unexpected encounter on a random sidewalk had redeemed not only a lost child, but also a man who had lost himself in his own pain. "I'm never going to give up again," he promised, "on anything or anyone, especially not on you." In the distance, the last photographers who remained at the gates of the mansion captured the silhouetted image of father and daughter embracing under the stars, an image that, the next day, would grace newspapers with the headline, "The True Miracle of Reunion." A year had passed since that interview in the garden. The marble mansion, once cold and silent like a mausoleum, now pulsed with life and movement. The blue room had been redecorated, still blue at Anna's request, but now with luminous stars on the ceiling and shelves filled with books that she could already read on her own. The locked room on the 3rd floor had become a welcoming memorial, no longer a forbidden sanctuary where father and daughter visited to tell the absent mother about their days. The millionaire kept every promise he made. His routine now included breakfast with Anna every morning, without exceptions. Business meetings were scheduled only after school hours. Weekends were sacred, often spent at the beach house they bought. Not an ostentatious mansion, but the same small blue wooden house they had rented during their escape. Evenings invariably ended with a bedtime story, regardless of how exhausted he was. His companies surprisingly thrived under the new philosophy. The social projects division created after his return had already helped hundreds of children in vulnerable situations. Among them, several who, like Anna, had been exploited by the same auntie, now serving a sentence for her crimes. But the most notable transformation wasn't in the numbers or statistics. It was in the little things, the smile that now came easily to the lips of the man once known for his coldness, the growing confidence of Anna, who flourished at school and made friends with the same determination she demonstrated in everything. The garden of the mansion, which the housekeeper said had never been so vibrant, as if the house itself were happy. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, exactly a year and a half after the reunion, a small celebration took place in the garden. There were no journalists this time, only a few hand-picked people, the faithful housekeeper, the retired lieutenant who had helped unravel the mystery, 2 or 3 of Anna's close friends from school, and the doctor who had cared for her in the hospital as a baby, located after months of searching. The reason for the celebration was twofold: Anna's 8th birthday and the final officialization of her identity. After a long bureaucratic process, she would finally receive the document that confirmed what her heart had always known: her real name, her real story. Nervous? Asked the millionaire, finding his daughter sitting alone on the swing hanging from the oldest oak tree in the garden, a little away from the small party. A little, she admitted. It's weird, finally being officially me. He sat on the swing. Next to her, a gift he had installed the day before. You know what your mother used to say? That we are who we are, regardless of the papers that the world gives us. Documents only confirm to others what we already know in our hearts. Anna smiled, swinging gently. I think I always knew who I was, even when I didn't know my name or where my home was. I had something inside me that no one could take away. The millionaire watched his daughter with admiration. How could a child who had been through so much have such profound wisdom? And now, with your official name and everything, he asked, how does it feel? Anna considered the question for a moment, with the seriousness that still characterized her in important moments. Complete, she replied finally, like a circle that was open, finally closed. A complete circle. The millionaire couldn't have described it better. From tragedy to redemption, from loss to reunion, from loneliness to a rebuilt family. Your birthday cake is waiting, he said, standing up and extending his hand. Ready to blow out the candles? Anna took his hand and jumped off the swing. Wait, before that, I want to give you something. From the small bag she was carrying, she took out a simple package, clearly made by children's hands, with colored paper and lots of tape. For me? But it's your birthday. I should be giving you presents. Open it, she insisted. Carefully not. To tear the paper so lovingly folded, the millionaire opened the package. Inside was a handmade picture frame, decorated with seashells from the beach and bits of colored glass polished by the sea. The photo showed the 2 of them on the beach, during their escape, smiling and carefree, with the sea in the background and the setting sun painting the sky orange. The housekeeper helped me develop the photo from your cell phone, explained Anna. I wanted to give you something that would remind you of our fresh start, to put on your desk in the office. The millionaire swallowed the lump that formed in his throat. How did that little creature manage repeatedly to dismantle all his emotional defenses with such simple and pure gestures? It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received, he said, with absolute sincerity. Anna smiled, satisfied. Now we can go cut the cake. I'm dying to taste the strawberry filling. Hand in hand, they walked back to the small celebration. The guests smiled as they saw them approach. The former business shark, transformed by the love of a child who, against all odds, had found her way back home. At the center of the table, the birthday cake waited with its 8 lit candles. Behind it, in a silver frame, the official certificate that finally recognized Anna as the legitimate daughter of the millionaire. No longer a cold adoption document, but the confirmation of a blood tie that neither time nor tragedy had managed to break. "Wish time," reminded the millionaire, positioning himself behind his daughter as she prepared to blow out the candles. Anna closed her eyes for a long moment, focused. When she opened them again, there was a serenity in them that touched everyone present. "I didn't need to make a wish," she confessed after blowing out the candles to applause. "Everything I could want, I already have." Later, when the guests had left and the house fell silent for the night, the millionaire went to Anna's room for the bedtime reading routine. He found her already in bed, leafing through one of the many photo albums he had rescued from the locked room. "Which story do you want tonight?" he asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Anna closed the album and looked at her father with those amber eyes, so similar to her mother's. "Actually, I'd like to hear a real story," she asked. "Can you tell me how you and Mom met?" The millionaire smiled, settling more comfortably on the bed. It was a story he hadn't told in a long time, a story of an ambitious young man who had met a dreamy artist in a busy coffee shop, and how that unlikely encounter had changed the course of 2 lives. As he narrated, he realized that for the first time he could talk about the past without excruciating pain, only with the sweet melancholy of longing. Anna listened attentively, absorbing every detail, building in her mind the image of the mother she hadn't had a chance to know. "Do you think she would be proud of us?" asked the girl when the story ended. "Without a doubt," he replied, adjusting the blanket around her. "She always believed that even from the greatest tragedies, the greatest miracles could be born. And you, my daughter, are living proof of that." Anna yawned, sleep finally overcoming the excitement of the day. "Good night, Dad," she murmured, already with her eyes closed. "I love you." "I love you too, my little miracle," he replied, kissing her forehead. Before leaving, he stopped at the door to watch his daughter fall asleep. The soft light of the lamp illuminated her brown hair, spread on the pillow, and the slight smile that remained on her lips even during sleep. Next to the bed, the music box played softly the lullaby that had crossed time and distance to reunite what should never have been separated. On the opposite wall, the millionaire's shadow was projected, large and protective. It was no longer the shadow of a man broken by tragedy, but that of a father reborn by the miracle of reunion. A man who had learned through the eyes of a child that true wealth is not measured by bank accounts or business empires, but by the ability to love and be loved. Outside, the night embraced the now warm mansion. The stars shone as silent witnesses to a story that few would believe if they hadn't seen with their own eyes. The story of how an abandoned girl and a lonely millionaire found, in each other, the piece that was missing to complete the puzzle of their shattered lives. And perhaps somewhere among the stars, an absent mother smiled, knowing that her family, against all odds, was finally reunited again. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.